Very good. We're ready to go. Thank you, Louise. Welcome members in the Chamber and online to today's Human Resources Committee meeting on Wednesday the 22nd at 10 a.m. Please authorise me to sign the minutes of the meeting of the Human Resources Committee held on the 15th of September 2025 as a correct record of proceedings. Thank you very much indeed. There, jolly good. Louise, have we got apologies and substitutes today, please?
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillors Hacking and Colleen. Unfortunately, their substitutes are not able to attend, and Councillor Delaney is online.
Thank you. Are there any additional agenda items?
Yes, Chair, we have one additional agenda item at agenda item 6, which is Rother District Council's approach to market supplements and retention payments.
Thank you. Disclosures of interests and dispensations to receive from any disclosures by members or disclosable pecuniary interests and other registrable interests, non-registrable interests in matters on the agenda, and the nature of any interest and details of any dispensations obtained. Members are reminded of the need to repeat their declaration immediately prior to the commencement of the item in question. Okay, so I think we're going to go straight into agenda item 5. I think Anna, you're going to introduce Belinda to go through the report, which, having read it, the report, I find it a very professional and corporate document and an excellent piece of work. And it was quite a pleasure to read it all through and to see where we've come from to where we are now. I'll leave that with you then, please, Anna.
Thank you. Yes, I'm very pleased to introduce Belinda Collins as our new HR manager. As the leader says, the report is very comprehensive. It gives an update on the people strategy as well as a dashboard on how the team is performing and the highlights for Rother as a whole in terms of HR. So I will just, with pleasure, hand over to Belinda Collins.
Hello everybody, I'm pleased to be here. I'm going to obviously assume that you've read the document. It's not a very long document, but it covers a lot of the work that we have been doing. So appraisals have been completed across the council, and it's now the 6-month review time. So managers should be working with their staff to just go through how they're performing against their appraisal targets. Recruitment has been quite busy. Our turnover has increased a little bit, which obviously means that even we've got people leaving, so we have people joining. There have been some challenges in attracting and retaining some skills across the council, but we'll talk about that in the next paper. So we've made some key senior appointments, and you will probably all be aware of those. We've refreshed the corporate induction, and we are going to run face-to-face inductions 4 times a year so that people do come together and do have an opportunity to hear from senior managers and get a real feel for the council as a whole. We haven't had any TUPE transfers in this period, and in terms of employee relations, we've reconvened what is now called the Employee Engagement Group, where colleagues can come together and talk about issues that matter to them and comment on council policies that are being introduced and share suggestions and ideas. So I think that's a really great way of engaging with staff. The relationship with employees and trade unions was stable last year, and we're working well together. There was a staff survey that was conducted last year, and there were a number of actions taken, including the opening of the new staff canteen area in July, which has proved to be very successful. So in terms of employment initiatives, we have an apprenticeship scheme through the levy, and we have been maximising that, and I'm very pleased to see that we've got currently 15 apprentices across services, and we continue to consider apprenticeships as a good way of growing our own, particularly in such a difficult, challenging labour market. We had some work experience people, and a couple of the HR team went to the jobs fair and to promote Rotherham District Council, obviously, as an employer, and there was quite a lot of interest, and some people have been asked to be kept informed of vacancies. So training and development, we have the mandatory training, which is provided to us by a company called iHasco, and there's lots of training on there, but we do have a suite of mandatory training which helps us to make sure that we have given all our employees the basic covering of critical training so that they know enough about some of the issues that are happening. And cybersecurity in particular has been very topical in the last few weeks. Training requests from appraisal reviews have been logged, and we will be developing a training plan, and budgets for training are devolved. In addition to that, I should say there have been some training changes in housing, and there's a new mandatory requirement for senior housing managers to have a level 4 or level 5 apprenticeship qualification, and we are working with managers to deliver that. We've checked our cybersecurity training because of what has been going on nationally and globally, and everyone now has done their cybersecurity training, with the exception at the time that this report was prepared of 2 people who have started recently with the council, so we're very on top of that. Each business has its own training budget, so it's not just a corporate pot, so local training is managed, but we do try and support where we can. A carbon literacy training programme was introduced to support our sustainability goals, and that's now mandatory for all officers. And the council achieved a bronze carbon literate organisation status in June 24, and is working towards the silver standard for March. We launched the ILM Level 5 management course for effective and strong leadership across the council. Again, that's an accredited programme. In the year ahead, we are going to be focusing on developing staff and supporting them through organisational change, such as the large change of LGR. Health and safety, there was only one minor staff incident reported. We are working through all the normal things that you'd expect under health and safety, and we're doing refresher training where we need to. We haven't brought policies forward in this period, but we are doing a whole review of council policies, and we will be bringing through a lot of policies in the next year for approval by this committee. The pay and reward backdrop is that, as you're aware, staff received £1,000 pay award in April, and that we will be moving on to the NJC pay negotiations from next year. We've stated in here about market supplements, which are being used in very many local authorities where skills are very difficult to find, and we do have set criteria for market supplements, and they're only used where we feel that will make a difference in the attraction of staff. The gender pay gap report is included at Appendix A, and so I will run through to that, because there's the other things, there's no real impact on any of the other items in the report. So the pay gap reporting is a national initiative, and since April 2017 we've had to report the pay gap. So we are very fortunate that we are quite a small authority, and normally a lot of activity takes place getting a gender pay gap report ready, and we don't have to publish this yet, but we have published it because we have completed the exercise, and as you can see that there is a pay gap, but I don't think there's anything for us to worry about. Pay gaps occur because of several factors, but in our situation I think that it's a lot of roles. We have a lot of female roles, female dominated roles, where people have chosen to stay in certain roles. So it's about, you know, the social aspects of pay rather than us paying anybody differently for a job because they're a man or a woman. I hope that makes sense. So we have got the dashboard, and as you can see, we've got quite a large number of people who've worked for the council for a very long time, and that is something to be celebrated. And obviously, with the changes coming, their continuous service will be protected through into whatever authority happens next. Looking at permanent versus fixed term, we've got a very small percentage of staff that are on fixed term contracts. And in terms of male and female employees, we've got 44% male and 56% female. And if you look at the bar chart over the age, that is fairly typical, I would say, of a local government authority. As you can see, the very low age, we haven't got that many, which is something to consider in our recruitment and attraction approaches. So, for example, going to jobs fairs and selling local government as a career. And then, you know, we've got that sort of higher proportion of workers on the 45 to 54 age group, which is fairly typical. Sickness absence is being monitored carefully and controlled as far as possible. The overall number of days is not out of step with other organisations, and in fact there have been some recent reports that sickness generally has increased since COVID as a national issue, and that figure hasn't come back down since COVID, interestingly enough. And then there's a final bit about sickness, which is in relation to the cost per year. So we do need to manage sickness absence tightly, but we also need to support anybody that needs extra help. And we do have an occupational health process, and we also have a very good employee assistance programme. And in terms of recruitment, I think the job offer acceptance rate is really good. It's 95% of people who are offered a job have accepted it, which I think is quite good in terms of the experience that people have had during recruitment, that they have enjoyed the recruitment process and they have then accepted the job. Recruitment channels, as you can see, we've got a wide number of recruitment channels, and finally the average time to recruit is about 8 weeks, which I think is really good. And we do need to work really hard on retaining staff and reducing our turnover. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Belinda. Aaron, are you making a move to ask a question?
Yes, thanks, Chair. A couple of questions, thanks. One, regarding the sickness leave and looking to maybe get that down, do we monitor that for mental health absences, and do we offer any additional support, such as employee assistance programs regarding to mental health? Just comments on that. And secondly, on the training, I know we do GDPR training, and I know in Cabinet we have a report coming up on data protection.
Yes.
The MJ recently did a study and found some councils, not us, were really kind of at risk of data protection especially. So maybe there needs to be more training, especially with that report coming up, but also in general, expanding that data protection training. Yeah, thank you.
Well, the cyber security does cover an element of that, and the GDPR training is a bespoke module that does also cover all of that. The training also covers mental health awareness and equality, diversity and inclusion. So in our mandatory training, we cover off all those things that you've mentioned. We do also have mental health first aiders. We have 5 of those, and the employee assistance program covers virtually anything that you would need to talk about. So I think, you know, we are working hard on those angles. We are also reviewing our absence policy, which will be one of the first policies that we bring. As I said, we have got a big policy review programme on, and some of the early ones that we want to bring will be absence and recruitment and retention, just so that, you know, that you are aware that we are working really hard on some of these initiatives. And absence is something that we can improve, but we also need to be supportive where people have genuine health conditions.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that.
Councillor Gareth Delaney.
Hi, Belinda. I was just interested in the apprenticeships programme, and which I think is great. So I didn't realise that we had quite so many apprentices working for the council, so that's really good. Given the difficulties in finding good jobs and training for young people, I think it's really great that we're doing that. Has that presumably increased our numbers of younger people who are working for the council, and what is the sort of retention rate for them? Just wondering if we train them and then they up and leave.
Well,
retain them?
the issue with the apprenticeship programme now, it's not what was a traditional apprenticeship programme where you took in a group of 18 to 20-year-olds and trained them, which was the historic apprenticeship scheme. This is a relatively new government initiative, which is funded through a levy that's taken from the salary budget. We have to pay 3% towards a levy to go towards funding apprenticeships. And the apprenticeships that are on offer are open to anybody of any age. So it's not geared to bringing younger people in, although we need to address that, but it is geared to very job-specific training.
Oh,
so we wouldn't necessarily put someone on a completely unrelated apprenticeship, although that might be something we might consider further down the line where we can't get people. We might consider, have we got good staff in other areas that could move across into another profession. But these qualifications take some time, and you have to give 20% of the time off to the employee to do their training during working time. But we have seen people get qualified. I honestly can't tell you about retention at the moment, but I can bring a paper on apprenticeships to the next committee. We are at the moment reviewing all of the apprenticeships, but one of the things about the apprenticeship thing is that if you transfer to another local authority, your apprenticeship training transfers with you. It's all part of upskilling the country. So I can't honestly say hand on heart that I know that information, but I can bring a paper next time about apprenticeships and how we're doing with them and where they are sitting.
It would be interesting to see their journey through their apprenticeship. Yeah, but no, that's great. And I think I understand about the change in the demographic coming into them, and that it does help meet the need as far as recruitment into specific sector-specific jobs. So training people up is a great way of getting people into those jobs when we're finding them difficult to recruit experienced people.
54% of our workforce live in Rother, so it is another aspect that's important. But unfortunately, some of the jobs where we're finding it difficult to fill, we're having to look further afield to fill those jobs, and there are national skills shortages for a number of roles.
Yeah. Okay, but thank you for that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the questions, Gareth, and Belinda's responses. I invite Councillor Mark Legg.
Thank you, Chair. Nice to meet you, Belinda. Thank you very much for that. It really is just following on from Councillor Delaney. I noticed that on one document there is mention about roles that are impossible to fill. And that was a word that jumped out at me, because that really is an absolute word. Are the apprentice scheme, or does the apprentice scheme focus towards those sorts of roles, or is it more general? Thanks.
Yes, we are obviously focusing on national shortage roles where we can, but we do need a balance of experienced people in those professions. And part of that is so that, we've got that really deep level of skills and abilities, and those people can then help to develop those people that are on apprenticeships. We can't have, a whole team made up of apprentices. We need a balance. But, when we say impossible to fill, we're talking about going out to advert 3 times and not getting any real proper candidates that meet the mark. And the other thing is, in some roles, we are getting people applying who don't quite meet the requirements of the role. And so it's a decision then, do we appoint them and add training, or do we continue to search the market? And they're some of the tough decisions that we have to take.
Thank you.
Thanks for that, Mark. Belinda, Anna, did you want to make any comments, please?
Yeah, first of all, just to go back to the cybersecurity point that you raised earlier on, we've raised cybersecurity and data protection as one of our big corporate risks, and we're doing more work on it. Quite regularly, our digital team do special exercises as well to, send out emails and see if people click on them and stuff like that. That's why we're putting such a focus on making sure that everybody completes their mandatory training. We have got a bit more work to do just to make sure that all our members have completed their training as well, because of course people can get into your system by any means, can't they? So that's very, very high up on our risk register, that one. And just adding to what Belinda said about the apprenticeships and the hard to recruit areas. So traditionally we've had some very successful apprenticeship schemes in environmental health and in planning, areas like that where people have gone through to master's level qualifications. But now we're looking to other areas as well with our very difficult to recruit to positions to see if there is more that we can do in those areas as well. And we've had some very good feedback recently from our environmental health team who've got, I think, 3 or 4 either apprenticeships or people who are on, they've just finished their degree and they're looking for some work experience. And they're getting on really well, and the energy and passion that they're bringing to their work is really great. You know, these are people that are only, 22, 23, 24, and they want to come into the office every day because they want that training, and they want to be able to consolidate their formal training with practical experience and learn from colleagues. And it's really great to see those, people in the office.
Yeah, I think they're very good points that you make. I think it's a case of just gendering that enthusiasm to get into the workplace and then want to impress once you're in there. It's like a trial to a certain extent, isn't it? That you're going to go out there and demonstrate your skills. One question I would just like to ask Belinda, we do promote staff to take external training courses, do we, or external qualifications, and we're able to fund that in some way. Have we got many on that at the moment, and is that something that has an attraction to employees?
The vast majority of qualification training is done through the apprenticeship scheme. We do have a few people doing qualification training outside of the apprenticeship scheme, but the most effective cost-driven way is through apprenticeships. We have devolved budgets to departments for specialist training that they need for their service, and we have a corporate training budget which we have to monitor carefully, and we really at the moment have to deliver the essential training, and then if there's any money left over, then we can look at what else might be required. There's been a new piece of legislation that's come in that now says that housing managers have to have a level 4 or a level 5 qualification, which is through the apprenticeship route, and we're looking at that at the moment, right at this time.
Thank you. Going back to the report, which I did enjoy reading because it was an easy report to actually flow through and read and grasp the information. I'm not saying that doesn't happen in other reports, but this was very, very clearly put together, and I liked some real key messages that came out. I like the fact that employment relations, that we actually are stable and we're working well together, and the initiatives that have come forward in your report again is very, very important. You've gone through the training and development, which I think is absolutely vital because it does give us an altogether skilled team to tackle the tasks and the challenges that are ahead of us. So, and I really enjoyed looking at, if I can enjoy reading things. Your graphics, I thought they were brilliant. I thought they were a very clear message, and so often I believe people look at pictures, as it were, and it gets the message across. So altogether, an excellent report. And I think with the everything that's been updated, I think we're just due to note this report, the progress, and I'll invite Lorna to make a couple of comments as well, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to thank Belinda and her team for putting this report together. I think there was a real step change here in the way that we're reporting how HR matters are going. I really think the dashboard was a really, really good addition to the papers. We've not had that before, and I think it's really, as you say, Doug, it's just really clear, and that's fantastic. I do think we've got a real challenge ahead with local government reorganisation, and you mentioned sort of the change programme that we need to develop, Belinda, and I think that's something that we'll want to bring back to you as a committee. We are starting to think about that. We've done one session with our Managers Forum, which is all the members of staff that have reports. But we need to develop a more comprehensive programme, both about leadership development, managing change, and just equipping our staff for the future and going into a unitary authority. So that is also on the agenda, and we'll bring that back when we've developed a programme, and we also need to find a budget for that, which is challenging in the situation that we find ourselves in with budget. Thanks, Chair.
Yes, I totally agree. And I think this report is one that I do hope that all members have read it, because it is very, very pertinent to what we're trying to achieve. And I think the report of this quality is easy to read and understand it, and I just hope that members will have bothered to do that. So I don't think there's any other comments. There is another comment coming from Aaron. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It's more just to overlap with what's been said by Lorna, yourself, and Linda. In terms of those difficult to recruit positions and LGR and what's coming, is there any chance that we could offer some kind of mapping and skill, like Myers-Briggs, that kind of thing? Because while it can identify soft skills, it can then maybe identify people who can move into other areas, and with the training development, maybe offer these difficult to recruit roles, people who are suitable, who would fit from other areas. Any thoughts on that, sorry?
Lorna, would you like to?
Thank you for that question. Absolutely. And Belinda and I are starting to think about what our top team looks like in the future, and the skills that we need there, and the sort of tools that you're mentioning there sort of starts at that level, but then how that cascades through the rest of the council is something that we need to plan. It's very much part of that planning that I mentioned. And the more we can think about that now, 2.5 years really isn't very long to do that kind of work. So I don't think we've had as much change as other councils have actually been exposed to. So there is something about equipping our staff to thrive in that new council, and that's really important that we do that. And using all the tools that you mentioned there is, you know, there's lots of different ways that we can do this, but we're actually really excited to look at that and develop something that we can be proud of and staff really benefit from. So absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, as I say, it's been an excellent report, and it's brought us into a very corporate and professional stance within our business, which perhaps wasn't there to its entirety previously. And as I said to you before, Belinda, you've made a real difference. So I think this is a combination of all the work that you've done and your team. So what do we need to do on this? We just need to note this report, and I think we're all comfortable to do that. I don't think there's anything else to say on that main report, but we've got another item coming forward, agenda item 6. So that was unanimous. So we move into the next report, which I think, are you going to present this report, Lorna, as to the necessity of noting this and approving the wording as outlined in the report?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I will bring Belinda in because she knows the detail of this. I'm sorry this is a bit of a late addition, but as Belinda said, we have got some live issues that have required us to think again about our market supplements and introduce a retention payment. So the purpose of this report is to do that. It is the idea that this is part of the council's pay policy, which will be updated with the wording set out in paragraphs 2 to 11 of the report. And the pay policy comes through each year alongside the budget, so that will happen in February time. I'm going to hand over to Belinda to talk you through what's changed in this report, because we did introduce a market supplements policy last year. And just to say, we are going to be very, very carefully monitoring this, because this is the sort of thing that can get out of control, and it does need a very strict criteria that we need to apply. So it's something that we will regularly look at, both in terms of cost and seeing its impact as well, seeing actually, is it working? Is it retaining staff? Is it encouraging staff to join us? So I'm going to hand over to Belinda just to talk you through the detail. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I suppose just initially, I'm sorry if everybody understands it, but I just thought I would identify what a market supplement is used for. Now, as an organisation, we have a job evaluation scheme where we consistently assess people's jobs and score them on 13 factors, and then the points are added up, and each set of points converts to a pay grade. So across the council, we have a robust way of ensuring that everybody does a job that has been considered against job evaluation scheme, and they are appointed according to the pay line that the council agreed some years ago. Now, as you may or may not be aware, that the market for certain jobs is very, very difficult. So what has happened over a long period of time, people have introduced what's called a market supplement. It's not part of base pay. It is an additional payment which is reviewed annually to see whether the market has changed and whether the market supplement is still required. And the heads of service will be tasked with doing that shortly to do a review. We haven't got many people on a market supplement, but it is only for those where the jobs are hard to fill. What this report also does, it looks at some of the groups which are pretty impossible to fill. So, for example, we have gone out 3 times to recruit senior environmental health officers and have been unsuccessful. Trying to get surveyors in a market where there's lots of private sector competition as well as local authority competition means that, you know, the alternatives are agency workers or finding different ways to deliver those sort of projects. And the same applies with project and programme managers. There's a lot of demand in the market for those skills. So this report adds to the last market supplements to say that we want to add a bigger market supplement for those roles that are really difficult to fill. And if you look at paragraph 4, it talks about what the rate of the market supplement should be. And, you know, in each service area, there are different levels of market supplement depending on the skill and the gap. This proposes to double the market supplement. That doesn't mean doubling the salary, it means just doubling the additional payment to see if we put that out to market so that jobs are showing at 2,000 or 3,000 extra would show at 4,000 and 6,000 extra. And whilst I appreciate that may be expensive, in terms of keep going out to recruit, that's also expensive. And we do have services to deliver that do need some of those skills. So that's the proposal, which is making some changes to what we agreed last year, but to enable us to try and really capture some good staff in the market by attracting them with a slightly higher salary. Now, we do recognise that it's not just about money. So alongside that, we are going to be looking at a recruitment and retention strategy, which we hope to bring to the next committee. So the other addition is something called a retention payment. And a retention payment is where there is an identified flight risk that people are going to leave. And certainly in 1 or 2 areas, we have seen a lot of turnover, and we do need to retain some staff where we have got significant skills gaps and where we're going to struggle to deliver all of the services without retaining the staff. So the intention is to pay a small retention payment, and that can be a variable payment. The reason for that is, you know, we might be matching a salary level from somebody who's transferred in from another organisation that was higher paid, and we might be matching a salary upwards where we are concerned that somebody will leave. And the intention with that is that we would do a recovery of the money if the person doesn't stay. So I think that's the sort of basics of what we're asking approval to do. And I think, you know, as we've already said, it's going to be very tightly managed. It will have to go to the spend panel to make sure that it's approved at the highest level before it's implemented. So it's not something that anybody can have. It will be managed corporately, and we will be reporting on that regularly.
Thank you for that very clear explanation. It's like having a toolbox, isn't it, almost, when we identify what we will need to do in order to meet our staffing requirements. So I think this is, again, it moving towards very much a corporate and professional way of retaining staff and attracting staff. So I'm very pleased to move that we accept updated the wording as outlined in the report, and leave that with officers to take forward to generate the right outcomes. So I think we just need to vote on that. Thank you very much, Aaron. Anybody against, Mark? Okay, excellent. Well, I think that almost concludes where we are today. There's nothing else, I don't think, on the agenda. Excellent. Well, thank you very much again, Belinda. Thank you for the
Thank you.
and the meeting closes at whatever time it is.
10:40.
10:40. Thank you very much.